When my daughter was 4 weeks old, my mother-in-law stood in my own living room, pointed at me, and told the 2 police officers she'd called, "That woman is unstable. She's a danger to my grandchild. I want her removed from this house." I was holding my sleeping newborn. I hadn't slept in 3 days. And I smiled, not because anything was funny, but because my sister-in-law was standing in the kitchen doorway behind them, and she gave me the smallest nod, and I knew she'd finally decided to hand me the phone with 6 months of their messages on it. Let me back up, because a scene like that doesn't come from nowhere. It's built, brick by brick, and I watched every brick go down and told myself each time it was nothing. My name is Maya Foster. I'm 32 years old. I married into the Prescott family 4 years ago, and for a while I actually believed the warmth was real. Let me tell you about the first red flag, because it's small and that's the point. That's how these things always start. It was our engagement dinner. My mother-in-law, Diane Prescott, had planned the whole thing, and she'd seated me not next to my fiancé, Ethan, but at the far end of the table next to a cousin while Ethan sat up by his mother. A tiny thing. I noticed it and said nothing. And during the toasts, Diane raised her glass and said, "We're so happy Ethan found someone to settle down with. We had our hearts set on the Whitaker girl for years, but..." A little laugh, you can't plan everything. In front of 30 people, she toasted my engagement by naming the woman she'd rather her son had married. Everyone laughed like it was charming. Ethan laughed. And I laughed too, because I was 28 and in love, and I told myself it was just Diane's sense of humor. That was the first brick. I helped her lay it by laughing. The Prescotts were old money in a small money town, the kind of family with a name on a hospital wing and a very clear sense of who belonged and who was being allowed in. I was a speech therapist from a family of teachers. I was, in Diane's private accounting, a step down that her son had inexplicably chosen, and while she was far too well-bred to ever say so directly, she found 1,000 small, deniable ways to remind me. The seating. The jokes. The way she'd redecorate any corner of our home she was left alone with, because my taste was sweet, but a little starter home, isn't it? I could have lived with all of it. Cold in-laws or survival. The problem was that Diane didn't want distance from me. Diane wanted something, and it took me until I was pregnant to understand what. Diane wanted a grandchild. Specifically, she wanted a Prescott grandchild, an heir to the name, and somewhere in the machinery of that woman's mind, she did not fully accept that the child would also be mine. She'd waited years for Ethan to produce this child, and when I finally got pregnant, a switch flipped. Diane became attentive in a way that made my skin crawl. She started talking about the baby as our baby, as the Prescott baby, as though I were a vessel the family had commissioned. Here's the second scene, the one where I first felt real fear. I was 7 months pregnant. Diane took me to lunch, just the two of us, which never happened, and over salad she said lightly, "You know, Maya, first-time mothers so often struggle. The exhaustion, the hormones. It can be quite dangerous, actually, for the baby if the mother isn't stable." She patted my hand. "I just want you to know that Ethan and I have discussed it, and whatever happens, this family will make sure that baby is protected, even from things a mother can't control." I sat there with my fork halfway to my mouth and understood that I had just been threatened, in a restaurant, over salad, in a voice sweet enough to deny, even from things a mother can't control. She was telling me, months in advance, that if she wanted to, she could frame me as unfit. She was laying groundwork, and I was too pregnant, too tired, too eager to keep the peace to do anything but nod. That was the brick that scared me. But I still didn't act, because who acts on a feeling? Who calls a lawyer over a lunch? The person who saved me is the reason I'm telling you this story with a happy ending, and her name is Kara. Kara is Ethan's younger sister, Diane's daughter. And Kara had spent her entire life watching her mother do to people exactly what she was now doing to me. Control through sweetness, threat through deniability, cruelty you can't quite point to. Kara had been the family's other target for years, the disappointing daughter, the one who never applied herself, which in Prescott meant she'd refused to marry the right person and had opinions. Kara saw what was happening to me because it had happened to her. Kara came to me when I was 8 months pregnant. She sat me down and she said something I've never forgotten. "My mother's going to try to take your baby. I don't mean legally adopt it. I mean she's going to build a case that you're unfit, slowly, so that if she ever needs it, it's ready." She did a version of this to my cousin's wife. I've watched her do it my whole life. And everyone lets her because she's careful and she's sweet and she makes you feel crazy for seeing it. I'm not going to let you feel crazy. I see it too, and I'm going to help you. And then Kara told me what she was going to do, and it was the smartest, coldest, most loyal thing anyone has ever done for me. Kara said, "Don't confront her. Don't change anything. Let her think you don't see it. Because the only thing that beats my mother is proof, and she only produces proof when she thinks no one's watching. I'm always in the family group chats. I'm always at the dinners. From now on, I'm saving everything." For 6 months, Kara saved everything. My daughter Lily was born in March, and the moment she arrived, Diane's campaign went from groundwork to active construction. It started the way Kara predicted. Diane moved in to help. I hadn't asked. Ethan, caught between his mother and his exhausted wife, allowed it. And Diane's help was a masterpiece of sabotage. She would take Lily for hours and return her overtired and dysregulated, then say to Ethan in front of me, "The baby's so unsettled with Maya, isn't she? Have you noticed?" She'd tidy my things and then mention that I seemed so disorganized, poor thing. I worry she's overwhelmed. When I was running on 90 minutes of sleep and finally snapped at her, one sharp sentence after she woke the baby, I'd spent an hour getting down. She pulled out her phone, and I realized too late that she'd been recording, and she said gently, "There it is, that temper. I'm just documenting, dear, for everyone's safety." She was billing the file, exactly as Kara said. And I would have had nothing, a sleep-deprived new mother's word against a pillar of the community, except that for every brick Deanne laid, Kara had a screenshot of Diane planning to lay it. Because here's what Deanne didn't know. Deanne was coordinating with her husband and with her lawyer in the family group chats and in text to Kara herself, because Deanne trusted Kara. Deanne still saw Kara as the compliant, disappointing daughter who'd never dare cross her. And in those messages, Deanne said the quiet part in writing, over and over. Kara had texts from Deanne that said things like, "Ethan is too soft to see it. You need to make sure there's a clear record that Maya can't cope, so that when the time comes it's undeniable." She had a message where Deanne wrote, "The girl is a speech therapist. She's not stupid, so we have to be patient and let her exhaust herself into a mistake." She had one, the one that would end everything, where Deanne wrote to her husband, "Once we have enough, we file for emergency custody citing the mother's instability. Judge Halloran plays golf with your brother. This is manageable." They weren't documenting a real problem. They were manufacturing one, and they'd written it down. The living room scene, the police, that woman is unstable, I want her removed, was Deanne pulling the trigger too early. What set her off was that I finally told her to move out. 4 weeks in, I found my spine, and I told Deanne calmly that I appreciated her help, but it was time for her to go home. Deanne did not accept that. Deanne's entire plan required proximity, required access, required me isolated and observed. She escalated, she called the police, claimed I was having a breakdown and was a danger to the baby, and tried to have me removed from my own home so she could establish herself as Lily's protector on the record. It almost worked. The officers were genuinely uncertain. A distraught older woman, a wild-eyed, exhausted new mother, a crying baby. The optics were exactly what Deanne had spent 6 months building toward. And then Kara stepped out of the kitchen doorway. "Officers," she said, "before you do anything, I think you should know that my mother has been playing this exact scene for 6 months, and I have it in writing." She held up her phone. "I'm her daughter. These are her own text messages. She's not protecting the baby. She's trying to steal it. Please, just read them before you remove a mother from her own child." The officers read them. You could watch the whole situation reverse in their faces. They did not remove me. They told Deanne coolly that this appeared to be a private family and legal matter, and they left. And Deanne stood in my living room understanding, for the first time, that the compliant daughter she trusted with everything had been the one person watching her the whole time. Now the story moves to where Deanne was always going to lose, a courtroom. Because Deanne, humiliated and enraged, did the thing enraged people do. She doubled down. She filed for emergency custody anyway, exactly as she'd written she would, citing my documented instability. Judge Halloran did, in fact, know her family, but Deanne had made 2 fatal errors, and Kara had captured both. The first was the paper trail. My lawyer, a sharp, unimpressed family attorney named Renata Cruz, submitted Kara's 6 months of texts into evidence. The documentation of my instability was revealed for exactly what it was: a manufactured record, planned in writing, by people who'd stated their intent to fabricate a case. The recording Deanne had made of me, losing my temper, now played very differently next to a text where she'd written that she needed to let her exhaust herself into a mistake. The second error was Judge Halloran. Because Deanne had put in writing that she expected favorable treatment from a specific judge due to a personal connection. "Judge Halloran plays golf with your brother. This is manageable." And when that text entered the record, it wasn't just embarrassing. It was an attempt to corrupt a custody proceeding. Judge Halloran, whatever his golf schedule, was not going to end his career for Deanne Prescott. He recused himself immediately and, I'm told, was furious to have been named. The judge who replaced him had no connection to the family and read the entire file cold. And then Deanne did the thing that turned a lost case into a criminal one. Desperate with the texts against her, she went to Kara privately and offered her money, a significant amount, to recant, to claim the texts were fabricated, to say she'd made the whole thing up out of jealousy. Kara recorded it. Of course she did. Kara had been recording her mother for 6 months. She wasn't going to stop for the finale. She let Deanne make the entire offer, the amount, the specific lies she wanted Kara to tell, all of it, and then she handed the recording to Renata. At the final hearing, Renata played it. The courtroom listened to Deanne Prescott, pillar of the community, offer to bribe her own daughter to perjure herself in a custody case. The new judge listened to all of it: the manufactured documentation, the plan to fabricate instability, the attempt to game the original judge, the bribe. And when it was over, he took off his reading glasses and was quiet for a long moment. And he denied Deanne's petition in full. He affirmed that I was, on the evidence, a perfectly fit and frankly extraordinarily patient mother. He entered a permanent order barring Deanne from any unsupervised contact with Lily. And he referred the matter, the attempted bribe, the naming of a judge, to the prosecutor's office. Deanne Prescott, who had a wing named after her family at the hospital, was investigated for witness tampering and attempted bribery. She avoided jail. But the name that mattered so much to her, the name she'd wanted to steal my daughter to protect, that name was in the paper attached to the word bribery, and in a small money town where the name was the whole point. That was the punishment that actually landed. Ethan is the last piece, and I'll tell you the truth about him because the truth is complicated. Ethan was not part of the plot. Deanne had been right about him. He was too soft to see it, which is a generous way of saying he loved his mother and could not let himself believe what she was. And the text came out when he read in his own mother's words that she'd planned to strip his wife of their child. Something in him broke and something in him woke up. He chose me and Lily, fully and finally, and he has spent the years since trying to be the man who steps out of the kitchen doorway sooner. I stayed. Not everyone would have, and I understand the ones who wouldn't. But he'd been raised inside that machine too, and I watched him choose to leave it, and that choice was real. Kara is Lily's godmother now, obviously. Disappointing daughter, the one who never applied herself, turned out to be the only Prescott with the spine to stand in a doorway and say, I see it too. My daughter will grow up knowing that her aunt saved her, quietly, with 6 months of patience and a phone that was always recording. Diane thought a sleep-deprived new mother would be the easiest mark in the world, and I nearly was. What she never once accounted for was the daughter she'd spent a lifetime dismissing. The one person who'd been watching Diane build her careful, sweet, deniable cruelty for 30 years, and who had simply been waiting for a reason worth exposing it. Diane spent 6 months billing a case that I was unfit to hold my own child. She just never noticed who was holding the receipts.